Okey-dokey, good. We all see that okay? No, I don't know if I'd love to go and
Yes.
see the Bayeux Tapestry. I don't know if it's actually, is the exhibition open yet to do it? Do you happen to know? But
I don't know.
I think it might be September before it finally opens. Anyway, here's a picture from the. This is William the Conqueror in the middle, listening to his brother Bishop Odo, younger brother Bishop Odo, who's obviously the clever chap on the left, and his younger brother Robert on the right, who's obviously a bit more of a direct action character, judging by his images there. The problem is that ever since 1066, we've been used to doing what we're told. The message has been from on high, yes, we're going to, yeah, we're in charge. You do what you're told, and we'll look after you. The trouble is that these days that the we'll look after you bit is staggering a bit because there isn't enough resources to give us the sort of resilience we might require, and therefore I'm suggesting we have to think more about doing it ourselves. So this is where we go. For those latecomers, we haven't got Jess Ryan at the moment. Not sure why that is. Um, I've sent out an all stations call to see if there's an issue. Filling in the time talking about raising local resilience. So looking at our around our community, this was originally intended for parish clerks, but it can be applied to a wider audience as well. A chap called Abraham Maslow in the 1940s produced a list of things that the hierarchy of need, things that we all need as human beings, and things like food, water, shelter, sleep were at the top of the list. And of course, a lot of people around the country are actually struggling with those issues as we speak. So that's by no means out of date. There's a whole list of things there. So then we think, okay, well, what about our local area, where we are living, people we're living with? What are the local concerns about nature recovery? One of the issues about that is we find it with some people, and there are certain political elements which are mainlining on this. I think it seems to be a human fact. If any of us come across something big and complicated that we don't properly understand, we tend to focus on a bit that we do understand, but we don't like. That seems to be like sort of normal behavior. And so again, this is the message: is how do we actually present
Yeah, I'm just looking
things?
at this
How do we communicate things?
collaboration. These Banter sessions I haven't done for ages.
Sorry, Colin. Yeah, you're right. Okay. So there's some pictures here. There's food bank in parts of London. There's some water flooding around a street in Ottery St Mary in Devon. That isn't next to a river. That's actually just the drains a few years back failing to cope with a downpour. So that's where it is. Heat waves, of course, very much popular the topic, and there's some bit of biodiversity, a bit of a bioblitz going on, looking at local wildlife habitats in West Yorkshire. So, what are the local concerns? Obviously, we'll know better when we speak to our local people. So, there is actually, some of us may have already seen the film that's been going around, the People's Emergency Briefing, which is looking to raise awareness around the country of what things are coming down the road at us. So I'm just going to show the previous trailer for it.
Top scientists say the environmental crisis needs a response similar to the scale of the Second World War.
We are in the thick of a crisis. We all have to act.
It's getting worse fast, and we're not prepared.
I'm scared for my own life and future, and I'm absolutely terrified for that of my son.
We're facing the potential of an ungovernable state.
It could make our country uninhabitable.
Oh my goodness.
The physics don't care about the politics.
You're being taken for a fool, my friend.
There are plenty of solutions out there. Solutions that will make life better. The burning question is, what can we do to make them happen?
It's absolutely bonkers. I mean, it's fucking ridiculous.
There we go. Okay. Thank you, Jennifer Saunders. Following that, no, I've lost my presentation. Following that, following that comment by Jennifer Saunders, the producers of the film brought out a different version of the trailer for children. Okay, let's get back to where we were. I don't know how many of us have already seen that presentation. Do we want to put hands up that they've seen it? I've seen it. Stuart, you've seen it. The full film. The bits we've just seen are extracts from the presentation given to Carrie. Thank you, Carrie. Given to an invited audience at Westminster Hall in November. So, talking now about resilience. How do we gather local resilience in response to some of these issues that are coming down the road at us? Government has a definition: to harness local resources and expertise. I like that definition. That's quite wordy, some of the rest of it. But this is all about what have we got locally? What can we help to do to help ourselves and our communities to prepare for all these things that are coming at us? So that's sort of resilience we're talking about. Just a bit of an example to cover the point I made about the government not being able to cover every point of resilience. I'm talking about food. Now, the supermarkets, as we know already, only hold up to 3 days' worth of food. That's the way that whole system operates. The government has this prepare campaign. There's a website, and you can find that all this information can be made available after the meeting, which talks about the effects of extreme weather, what we can talk about, but it doesn't mention food shortages. It's not been very well publicized either. There was a national security warning about food security that had to be dug out by the press, which the government wasn't exactly in a rush to present to the world. The government has no reserves from which to feed the whole country, even if they wanted to. Back in the day of the Cold War, I'm told that the government did have a supply of flour, for example. That doesn't happen anymore. It's rather relying on the supermarkets. We've got a new government. It's beginning to think about food. Food security is beginning to get more of airplay. But we don't know what resources they're going to be in mind for it. It's early days for that new government. So we know we're going to need more food resilience, and indeed in this year. We know that food security is already at risk. Same thing has happened last year. Less salad crops from Spain due to the heat waves. They're having a horrendous time in Spain, of course. The US war with Iran is stopping the arrival of certain chemicals that we need to produce fertilizer. Apparently about a third of the raw material for fertilizer, which comes from natural gas, goes through the Strait of Hormuz every year. So there's a problem straight away. And some farmers, a lot of farmers, are going to say, well, are they actually going to plant any crops today because they can't get any fertilizer? They're beginning to buy fertilizer from Russia, which is raising other issues in the press. Should we be buying things from Russia? So that's a big issue. We've got food banks, community larders, and community fridges around local areas for more immediate purposes. But in longer term, what about growing our own food locally? What about joining a food partnership? There's a map on the right of the food partnerships around the country. There's 123 of them so far. And this is about food producers, food distributors, and local organizations getting together to work out how can we keep supply chains going. So that's something that we could all be thinking about. Community supported agriculture is another developing idea. I don't know enough about it, but I've been saying to parish clerks, this could be an item for their local council agenda. And they'll be saying, I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen, I keep making a complete mess of showing this presentation. I keep pressing the wrong button. It's going to be very annoying. Practiced it all yesterday. Okay. So I said to parish clerk, and they could say, why should we be putting security, food security, on a parish or town council agenda? Well, cards off the top of the deck. The Local Government Act says for every parish there should be a parish meeting for the purpose of discussing parish affairs. So the local availability of food is certainly what I would call a parish affair. Council clerks have the responsibility to assist in the formation of overall policies and produce information required for making effective decisions. So if you're a parish clerk or even a parish chair, who are you going to call when you're talking about these issues? So actually we have a greater role perhaps than we expect as parish councils in this matter in terms of dealing with emergencies. And of course, as and when as and when the new local government becomes organisation comes in place, parishes and towns will be very much the closest democracy to the law public. Here's a list from an English academic this time about the different characters and roles needed for an effective operation and project. Maybe parish clerks think of themselves as team workers, maybe councillors and chairmen think of themselves as coordinators. But there are different ways in which we can get people engaged. It doesn't have to be all top down, but there are different skills we can get in from our local area. So that's just a bit of a background, but I'm not going to suggest that town and parish councils do this all on their own, because that would be crazy, because we need to do these things in partnership, and clerks in particular are very busy people. So I'm saying, who are the local leaders? Who are the people in our local area who are already in charge of things? If they are head teachers, if they are chairman of sports clubs, if they are chairman of local volunteering groups, whatever they might be doing. These are the people who are already engaged in doing things for the community and with the community. Should we talk about them? We can have local volunteering initiatives. There are local clubs and schools, also local branches of national organizations like Friends of the Earth and other organizations. I'm suggesting to clerks that we invite, and parishes, that we invite them to our annual parish meeting, which happens every year, and so that people can actually see what's going on locally and they can talk about what they have to do and get engaged in a discussion. And then one of the things that's being recommended for this People's Emergency Briefing, which I showed a trailer for just now, is having a public meeting after that presentation. And that's something that we could be thinking about in each of the areas where we live. And you can see that film screenings of the film around the country are rapidly increasing. What was looking like a slow turnout in April, and it's now huge. These have been happening everywhere. Sometimes it's parish councils doing the screening. More often it's other bodies doing it. And chances are there's going to be a screening near you, or about to be one near you, and you can look on this website and find out where. So that is the tide that's coming in. So we're talking about resilience, saying what are the things that can be considered, what are the things we might do. Wherever we are, there are things that we can, there will be opportunities to make a difference. Having bee squares in gardens, which encourages putting a meter of wildlife flowers in our front or back gardens, because bees and other pollinating insects need fuel for their journeys around. They pollinate crops, which are ultimately part of our food chain. So a bit of enlightened self-interest here. It's great fun. You can get seeds donated. It's a great way of getting people involved. So I recommend that. More allotments if we've got land. That's something that's obviously something that we can be doing. Looking at biodiversity on highway verges. There's a lot of other things there that we can list, and I won't go on reading them all out. One thing that's occurred to me where I live in the Forest of Dean is that what is our real catchment area? Is it just our local council area? Because our local GP covers the next parish as well. So it may be our real catchment, particularly in terms of medical equipment and other things going forward, is actually the two parishes together. That's quite helpful, because it may be that with the two parishes together, we can actually club together and do more than we can as ourselves. So again, this is the message, it's just about partnership. So councils on their own, this is again, apologies for this, which is very much focused on local councils. Local councils, parishes and towns are obliged to consider biodiversity in everything that they do, so we can have a biodiversity policy. Creating new allotments, we've got some advice on that. I think I sometimes refer to myself as Mr. Allotments. Lots of other things we can be doing, publicising other people's initiatives, seeing what we can do ourselves as a parish committee, a parish council, or indeed a local business or whatever. We declare some kind of action or emergency that allows people to know that the parish and town councils on the case and get them involved. And it ultimately is the way we tell them, because a lot of stuff that goes out in terms of communications in the media is rather depressing. And we need some positive stuff. It needs to be fun. If we're going to get people engaged in things, let's have some fun accents and fun activity. Just a bit more about parish councils again. People saying, well, we haven't got powers to do this. No local authority, no branch of local government has any power a duty to deal with climate change. Parish towns have a duty to provide allotments, which is a very long-standing thing. Consider biodiversity, hold an annual parish meeting. But in terms of powers, there's a whole bunch of other powers which are listed on the SLCC website. I'll provide a link to that. What I like is one at the top on the right. Power to work with high-level councils. Section 101 of the Local Government Act allows parishes and towns to work on other issues that are the responsibilities of other councils. And so actually there is quite likely that parish and town councils have more powers than they may actually realise. There's a great number of things we can do, even if we don't have the power of competence, which is a special thing that came out of a recent Act of Parliament. And money is the other thing that comes up. My view of the world is that money can't find people, but people can find money. There will be opportunities around. Sometimes it's a pain in the proverbial applying for funds. Parish councils do have the opportunity to have some of their own funding. Obviously, they have to budget for that each year, but that's a possibility. Local planning fees, if you've got a neighbourhood plan, you should be getting a good percentage of any local community infrastructure levy, which is placed on new developers. Certainly things about from the lottery. Biodiversity net gain is interesting because if a developer can't actually, or say they can't produce the necessary increase in biodiversity on the development site, if we find another site in the parish, perhaps one that's owned by the parish or town council, and get some money out of it. So that's interesting. Other local grants. Crowdfunding and community shares are more recent ways to raising money. And again, there's some more detail about all of this in the Society of Local Council Clerks Climate Action webpage. I'm not yet seeing, Jess Ryan hasn't joined us yet, so we'll keep going with what we're doing. Of course, a lot of places, communities, groups are already starting work. And this is just an example of some areas where the Great Collaboration has been working in East Anglia. There are community orchards there, lots of other projects, as you can see down the left-hand side. And so in many cases, it's the communities taking the lead necessarily rather than the parish council. That's fine, so long as somebody's taking the lead, but that's a great way of doing it. But our whole ambition with the Great Collaboration is to bring local councils and their communities closer together to work on these issues. And when you've got residents involved, lots more things become possible. Here's some very muddy but happy people. Stroud in Gloucestershire has got a number of streams running through it, Stroud valleys. And if you get a sudden downpour, you get a sort of wall of water going all the way down. So these volunteers have acted as human beavers, and they put down some logs to actually slow down the flow of water when we get these great downpours. And they're looking very pleased with that idea. That's just one example. But we can carry out a local flood risk assessment to see what we can do locally without having to raise lots of money or call the Environment Agency or whatever. There may be some things that we can do in terms of natural flood management. Lots of other things, getting people involved in BioBlitz or other local biodiversity audits to see what wildlife is around, what we need to protect, what we need to preserve. Also very useful when parishes are responding to climate to planning applications. Tree planting, certainly, but you can't just plant any tree everywhere. There's advice available on that. What about car clubs? Thermal imaging cameras is something that some parishes are doing. You spend £200 to £300 on one of those, and people can use the thermal imaging camera outside their houses, particularly perhaps in the wintertime, see how much heat and light is escaping, which can help them think a bit more about what they might like to do to save energy. So there's lots of things that can be done there. I'm just going to show you a bit of a screen now about a community action workshop.
Today we've been in Colchester at First Sight, which is amazing, delivering a workshop trying to help the community to come together around what kinds of action they can take locally to improve energy resilience, really, and to make sure that their community has got what it needs in the face of the changing climate.
Connecting people together is a really important starting point, and hopefully we can take something forward and build something.
Just starting that conversation is the really important thing. Starting that conversation in a pub at a parish meeting or something like that, just to get it out in the open.
That's what we're all about. It's community climate action happening right now today.
Okay, so that's a film which is our colleague Community Climate Action UK doing some community energy workshops in Essex, but there are other ways of that same process, which is being very successful, can be used in other places with other topics. Again, we'll talk briefly about maybe parishes doing things with other parishes, particularly smaller parishes or smaller areas might feel they haven't got the pennies to do things they might like to do, work with others. Wildlife pays no attention to parish or council boundaries, nor does floodwater. So there may be things that we can do. There's a cluster of councils in Suffolk, started with 3 councils, now got up to 10 councils, and they've got together, they've created their own community interest company, and they've raised £40,000 towards their own community energy project. So that could be a very useful way forward for parish and town councils. There's things about hedgerows. Again, hedgerows can very much cover cross parish boundaries, roadside verges the same. Farming clusters, again, some parishes are closely in touch with farmers, others are not, but getting involved with our farmers, being in touch with them seems to be a very useful thing to be doing when we're looking ahead. The picture on the left is from Gamlingay in Cambridgeshire. 2013, there was a community shares, talking about fundraising. People clubbed together community shares to erect this wind turbine. It's been going very successfully. It's producing energy and is actually producing from its sales an extra £10,000 a year to spend on local projects in that parish. So it was a big project, but obviously quite pleased about it, and it has been very effective. And so that's another thing about joint community energy projects can be considered. I'm just coming to the end of the presentation. I'm wondering, is it enough to just offer pathways to action? Do we actually need to be urging people at different levels of government, and particularly perhaps in local town and parish councils, to get more engaged? How do we get people to come together to do things? Rather than just saying, this is what you might do, what's the language we can use to encourage people, this is what you should do? Interesting. We've written, as well as the response to, partly in response to the People's Emergency Briefing film, which is very much about getting government to do a certain thing. We looked at how we can encourage things to happen locally. So some of the things I've been talking about today are visible in our own film, and as I say, this presentation we've made available after this meeting. And they're saying, looking around your area, this can apply to other groups, but not just to parish and town councils. Look around the area, connect with local people, get local events and ideas, get people engaged, say that you're going to be doing something. Start with something simple. We don't want to start with something huge. We don't want to have a huge dust, action plan covering dust somewhere. It doesn't get us anywhere. Certainly, the parishes can comment on planning applications. That's important to do. Work with others and share good practice. So those are the summary steps, and that's also in our own film, which you'll be able to see when you look further. Again, lots of advice available. There are lots of organisations out there offering advice. I'll pick out local resilience forums because they vary quite a lot, it seems, depending on, in the same way that local councils can vary a lot. But they are supposed to provide particularly local advice for people, things to put in their emergency plans. What are the local hazards they need to be aware of? Otherwise, there's plenty of support there, not just for obviously parishes and town councils, but other organisations as well. The great collaborations there, doing these weekly sessions and other exercises. We've started some very successful county-wide forums for sharing good practice in Essex and Norfolk. Hopefully to have another one in Suffolk shortly. And there's lots of stuff going on there. I mentioned briefly the People's Emergency Briefing film is based on this National Emergency Briefing. And just to remind ourselves, all the things that we said at that briefing, some of this stuff is quite scary in its way. Losing biodiversity, temperatures will keep rising and so forth. These are the kind of things that are coming at us. And again, it's not, this isn't a list you will necessarily we can't scare people into action. This is the background to where we actually present things and how we encourage people to work together and raise local resilience as a result. So are we going to be told what to do? Are we going to go forward together? Which is the word I use quite often. Obviously, I've been talking a lot as if I was speaking to parish clerks saying be told, but we need to think about if that's what we really want to do. Okay, I've paused that discussion. I've had no messages back from or about Jess Ryan's, Solly. Thank you for being resilient. Thank you, Nikki. I'm glad you enjoyed that. Does anybody want to raise any questions or start a conversation based on what I've just been presenting? Okay, thanks for coming, Nikki. I'm sure we'll have Jess Ryan again at some point in the future. Gary.
Thanks for stepping in like that, Andrew. That was
I was lucky I had that ready because I made a bit of a mess presenting it.
Yeah, I always find it's good to have a presentation down the back pocket somewhere just in case of these emergencies. Okay. I'm just wondering if anybody else has read I get the most frustrating thing I'm finding at the moment is the government documentation that's coming out about all these things like resilience and sustainability and that. I believe there's a lot of kickback about the national biodiversity plan. I haven't read that one. But what I did read recently was the government's farming roadmap for the UK. And I don't know if anybody else has read that as well, but it is the biggest load of rubbish. Even the farmers agree there's the biggest load of rubbish you've ever read. I mean, it barely mentions climate change at all. There's no mention of what climate change in the next 20, 30 years is going to have on the impact of farming and what resilience we need there and what adaptation we need. It's just basically saying a lot of kind of, you know, pie in the sky objectives that they're looking to improve absolutely everything, but not saying how they're going to do any of it. And it's just completely useless and completely, you know, of no help whatsoever to the farming industry or anybody else looking at it, or nature conservationists or anything. And I find that, you know, the government just doesn't seem to, it seems to like pay a lot of lip service to all of this and all these issues. But when it comes to actually putting out documentation that people can use, it's completely useless at it. I don't know if anybody else has any thoughts about it. Have we actually seen this document?
It came out in June this year, apparently. I've just put the head this on. Here it is, and this is the context. This came out. It's a question who we talk about, who the government is, because they make it very clear. This came out under the Keir Starmer government, you know. So what the Andy Dermot government is going to come out with, we still don't know, I think.
So it came out under the Labour government.
Yeah, so, Labour government. Yeah. Yes, that's right. But since Andy Burnham has taken over from Keir Starmer, I don't think we've had quite so much clarity about what the current government is thinking about in terms of responses to climate change. I attended a session last year from a group of influencers called the Green Alliance, and they were busy debating it as well at that meeting, but I don't think we've got any clear indication yet. In terms of resilient farm business. So, Gary, you're saying farmers don't think much to this particular approach.
Well, like I was saying, I mean, you look at the document, it barely mentions climate change. It barely mentions, you know, how farmers need to adapt to what they need to look to do the next 20, 30 years up to 2050. It's meant to be this roadmap. It basically just says, you know, oh, we think farming is going to be great and there's going to be more farming and there's going to be more nature and there's going to be less regulations, but there's going to be more inspectors. And, you know, it's saying this is kind of like painting this picture of this wonderful future that doesn't say anything about how to get there apart from basically carrying on business as usual. And it doesn't seem to identify that there are any concerns or issues or conflicts coming up. Like I say, climate change itself barely gets a mention, and there's no mention about what that impact is going to be on this future roadmap for agriculture. So it's just completely, you know, a useless document.
I see. It's talking about setting goals and supporting practices and investing in innovation and so forth, but it doesn't.
Yes.
It's not a roadmap. It's not a roadmap as I understand it.
No, it's just this aspirational document to say we're going to have more of all the good things, where there's going to be no conflicts between them. There's no conflict between nature recovery, for example, and farming. It's going to say, you know, we're going to have sustainable resilience farming where we're going to have better soils, but it doesn't say how that's going to happen or give examples of, you know, best practice. It's like I say, it's just I don't understand what it's trying to achieve in terms of being a useful document. So
well, I don't know if some things were suddenly somebody pushed a publication button just before Keir Starmer left Number 10. There was also some talk just before he left about civil servants talked about having a national resilience campaign called Fortitude. I've not heard any more about that either. And certainly the government's Prepare campaign, which is live and has been live for a while, I don't remember seeing any publicity about that at all. But I think this is where present company, the great collaboration need to be, is what we're about, is actually getting these information about what people can do. And we do need to speak more to farmers ourselves. I haven't spoken to the National Farmers Union yet, so we have had farmers attending these sessions from time to time. What is it that can be done in practice? My perception is that as we speak, things are changing around us. The world is going to be quite different. The life in the UK is going to be different in 10 years' time. It's a brave person who's going to say exactly what it's going to be like, but we do need to have a new normal. We do have a new way of doing things, dealing with water, dealing with energy, dealing with food, dealing with each other. And I'm sort of envisioning a sort loose leaf manual which gets updated on a regular basis in order to help people in communities sort of focus on things. We've got emergency planning templates. As you say, things are coming out in general vague terms from government. What I've said for years is if you wait for government, you'll wait a long time. We need to be gathering stuff that we can do practically and usefully at a local level and get stuck in. And for that point of view, it's a question of the way we tell them. I would love to see the BBC doing something like a Country Watch programme, whereby they talk about some of these issues and then shared straight afterwards with what people can be doing about it. Most of the stuff I see on the BBC these days is saying, oh dear, we got to 1.5 degrees above pre-industrial levels. Oh dear, insects are suffering from the climate change. I don't see enough from the BBC, which you might think is a public service broadcasting body, about publicising some of this practical stuff. And I'd love to see that happen. I says I'm getting, I don't know how to reach the BBC in that regard. We're getting some people together in October from other organisations dealing with community climate action, and also some media types to talk about this. So we can find out what are the messages we need to send out, what are the audiences and how we reach them, and how we can get a constant wellspring of better messaging. And part of that is going to be speaking to the BBC about their programming. I don't know if anybody's seen any practical climate action programs on the television at all anywhere. Anybody seen such a thing? I've not. There's a crowd called Open Planet Studios who are the producers of the David Attenborough's films, and I've reached out to them and see if they want to get involved in this. We get these rather sterile debates in the media about net zero or not net zero. We need something a bit more positive, I think, but a continuous wellspring, and I don't see where else it's coming from at the moment. Sorry, I seem to be talking on. Any more thoughts? Thank you for that, Gary. Very much need to include farmers in our conversations. Any other thoughts or about resilience and getting things together locally? Obviously not. Obviously, the presentation and this poor presentation has stunned people. Thank you very much. Yeah, Zoe, I think you and I we've got something you're presenting to us at some point in the near future. Is it the 26th of August you're on, Zoe?
Yes, hopefully. I'm just waiting on some confirmation of some other dates actually, but should be on that day. Yeah, hopefully.
Okay. Do you want to say a quick bit about? Can you give us a bit of a sleek teaser about what you're going to be talking to us all about? I know, but
so I was just going to talk a little bit about the journey that Exmouth Town Council has been on in the last kind of three to 4 years. Quite sort of early adopters of declaring a climate emergency, right through to trying to sort of build resilience locally. So I was just going to share some of our success stories, but also some of the barriers and some of the challenges that we've encountered over the last couple of years, and ways that sometimes we've managed to succeed and other ways we've had to sort of pivot and find a different route through. So just trying to share some of our success stories, really.
Right. Exmouth, of course, won. Was it last year or the year before? Won the award from the National Association of Local Councils for work on climate.
Yeah, so it was probably was it 20? We picked up the award in 2025.
We were the first winners, weren't you?
Applied.
We were the first winners.
Yeah, we were the first, because I said in my speech actually, how great it was to win, but how come they're introducing this award now? This award should have been around for considerably longer. But yeah. So just wanted to share some of those things, but also just to make it quite a practical presentation, really, because I think you're right. We hear a lot about what we can do and ways that we can build resilience and actions we can take, but I just kind of wanted to share some of a bit more of the detail, I suppose, the different groups that we reached out to in Exmouth, because we haven't done it by ourselves. Exmouth Town Council is very supportive, but without the likes of Transition or Plastic Free Exmouth, we couldn't have done this. So I've kind of built a big team of volunteers who dip in and out, but it's been a process. It's taken quite a lot of hard work, and a lot of networking and a lot of kind of persuading and a lot of outreach, basically. Yeah.
Well, it's again, as you'll have heard, we say to people, don't try and do it all on your own. Get local people together, very important. And it's great to hear that what you're saying. I also think in terms of messaging and showing people what to do, the more we can say, oh, such and such a place has done this, you could do it too. To steal from the lateral lottery, it could be you. This is an important thing. What we've been,
I mean, we
on.
didn't we haven't done anything new. I've just looked around at what other towns and parishes had succeeded in doing, but also what our district council was doing. Like you say, looking to higher authorities. So I worked with the Devon climate team and with the East Devon District Council team. So we definitely look to others for guidance and support and direction. And then, like you say, looking at what you can achieve as a town and parish council, what your powers and duties are, which are kind of quite limited, really. It's working within that framework and pushing those boundaries a little bit.
Okay. Lovely job. I can't answer why NALC didn't do that thing sooner, but I think what we're seeing, of course, is climate is beginning to take more of a hold on people's awareness. There are still some parish chairmen who think it's all a con still, but particularly after this summer, people might be revisiting their ideas about that.
I mean, I should also add that the People's Emergency Briefing film is really making a difference in Exmouth. We've shown it twice in the cinema to a packed audience. We've oversold the tickets in order to, fill the space, and well, not sold, they're free. But as a result, we've got the various churches hosting their own films. We've had the Rotary Club host a film. So it's really working in Exmouth. The follow-up meetings have been less successful, but the actual initial film and the call to action to host a film is really working. And our MP is being lobbied continuously to support the motion for a televised briefing, which he doesn't. But the National Emergency Briefing team have been brilliant and given me lots of suggested dialogue that we can have with the MP, because his response is defence. So they've given me some really great defence answers, which I fired off to all of the attendees to go back to him with. So I feel like we're building momentum in Exmouth from the point of view of that film. Actually, it's been really good.
I did hear somebody asked Ed Miliband about that film a while back, and he thought that the government would need to have some answers before it responded. Implication being that they didn't have the answers to everything yet. And of course, if people come back and say, well, what's the government doing about this? The government hasn't got very well-lined pockets at the moment to do a great deal. And in any case, there isn't enough money in the world to get us out of all this with a sweep of a magic wand. We do need to work at it very much locally as well as nationally. Has anybody else got any other stories about the People's Emergency Briefing, that film that they've seen? I was facilitating one in the Forest of Dean not so long ago. I was slightly depressed because a lot of the tables that we were discussing it afterwards seemed to still thinking it was all just down to the government. They weren't thinking about, so one table did actually take on the point that it could be about what they did locally. We have done some advice for the producers of the film on the back of the film, saying this is what you could do if you wanted to turn it into local action rather than just lobbying your MP. And they graciously thanked me for it, but they haven't actually shared it with people who are doing the screening. So they've obviously decided to stick with their initial plan about MPs and the Parliament. So good news, bad news. Good news, there's more awareness raising out there. But perhaps less good news. We still have to soldier away and getting the good word out there of what people can do. And of course, that's what these sessions are about as well. Has anybody else seen the film? Anybody else got any feedback or things about the film? I think you've seen it, Jenny, and I think Stuart, you've seen it, haven't you? If Graham was here, he was saying that they had to show it twice in the Isle of Wight in Bembridge because so many people wanted to come. Where did you see it, Stuart?
I'm trying to remember now.
It was a little while ago, yeah.
I think it was our screening online.
Right. Oh, the one that we saw with Rural Community Council Essex. Yes, indeed.
Yes.
Yes, indeed.
But I'm trying to persuade our council to do a screening for the council.
Right.
Not many councillors have seen it.
No.
And certainly very few of the officers. And I think it might be a a good starting point to try and reinvigorate the climate and environment sort of thinking.
Right. I mean, as I say, we did our own 10-minute film on which was focusing not on speaking to your MP, but focusing on, you know, what you do locally. So perhaps we should be promoting that a bit more as well. And the thinking behind that, as you might remember, Stuart, was so that we could have something that could be shown, you know, a short 10 minutes at a parish or town council meeting, rather than, you know, the full 45 from with Jennifer Saunders and co. But, haven't yet.
I think the Jennifer Saunders bits and the other celebrities,
yeah,
does give it a bit more appeal. I think that was quite a good move.
Yes, yes. Language, Timothy. Yes, never mind. No. Oh dear. Gosh, I think back when I was a young person, I think if I'd used language like that, I'd been told to go and wash my mouth out with soap. There we go. Times has changed a bit. Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm sorry that Jess Ryan hasn't been here today, and I don't know what the issue is, but we'll find out and hopefully have that presentation at another time soon. And we've got, let me just remind myself what might be happening next week. Because I think it was going to be yourself, wasn't it, Zoe? But then somebody else.
Yeah, there's someone else, but I'm not sure who that is.
No, let me see, because I've got a note of it somewhere, if I can find it. It's always nice to give a bit of an advance notice on these things, if we can. Looking through my emails just to, yes, for the 19th of August, which is not, it's in 2 weeks' time, isn't it? Right. Right. It looks like we might be getting somebody from the National Emergency Briefing team, a chap called Jamie Russell, who is community organising lead for that film. And it may be that we're looking for having somebody from inside that production company to talk about the film and its impressions and the effect that it's been having. So that's it. Jamie Russell is on the 19th of August. I can't see anything that's happening next week, the 12th of August, but maybe, and we've got Zoe coming in on the 26th. So it may be that we'll see if we can find whether Jess Ryan could talk next week, rather than this week. Okay, 10 to 1. Has anybody got any more thoughts, or should we call it a day for today?
No, I'd just like to say thanks for keeping the ship afloat.
Well, I'm just lucky I didn't have that presentation down. I made a bit of a mess of it in the middle, but that will become available. Obviously, the presentation itself, and Graham will post that on the Great Collaboration Knowledge Base, and you'll be able to use the links there. And I'll say it again: let us go forward together. We'll never surrender. Keep going. Keep calm and work differently. There we go. Thanks very much, Zoe. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks very much. Thank you. See you soon.
Bye.
Bye.